Welcome to the Exploring Potential podcast, where we delve into the realm of unique and novel ideas within organizations. Join us as we uncover the driving force behind innovation and success by engaging in thought-provoking conversations and stories with some of the brightest minds in various fields. Hey everyone, thanks for joining us and welcome to the Exploring Potential podcast. I'm your host, Brett King. As humans, whether some of us like to admit it or not, we don't succeed alone on an island. There's actually a saying when raising children that it takes a village. If you have kids, you can probably relate to the way like-minded parents or relatives or friends tag in to help other families out as we all just navigate the ups and downs of this thing called life. It's not just raising kids that takes a village, though, I'd argue. It also applies to building and growing our companies. As leaders, we collaborate, communicate, and really thrive with the input of a trusted community, whether that be as small as your board of directors and advisors, or as large as a startup ecosystem dedicated to lifting other business leaders up. Many of us at the executive level might participate in masterminds, where groups of like-minded, like-experienced professionals get the support and community we need through discussions and meetups, etc. But this is not just a leadership need, however. Our employees can also benefit from a sense of community regardless of the size of our operations. So how can we foster a sense of community for our organizations and reap the benefits that come along with it? And why is that important? Today, I'm thrilled to welcome to the show Amanda Lewan, co-founder of Bamboo, a modern workspace for doers and creators in the Metro Detroit area. Bamboo provides co-working space, offices, and community programs to help individuals and teams thrive. There's a lot we can learn from Amanda and her experience creating strong communities in each market that Bamboo has entered, working with successful companies of all shapes and sizes. Amanda Lewan is an entrepreneur with a mission to change culture and inspire innovation. As co-founder of Bamboo, she bootstrapped the co-working space to 3 locations and over 1,000 members. Amanda, welcome to the show. I'm glad you're here, and thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And full transparency, we spent some time at Bamboo Detroit several years ago. So we got to work within Amanda's organization and be part of that Detroit ecosystem there. So full transparency, we were very happy. I don't know that you'd call us customers, but we were very happy in the Bamboo family for our time that we did spend there. So Amanda, could you please kick us off with just a quick background of your career path and how Bamboo came to be?
Yeah, absolutely. So Bamboo was just an idea between a couple friends. I sort of completely stumbled into entrepreneurship, went to school, came home to Detroit for grad school. I'm a creative writer, so I was doing some writing. I had worked at a startup advertising agency and I was one of their first employees. So that was my first exposure to, hey, you can start a company and build something here in Michigan, which I had never thought of before. I think I come from a very working class, blue collar family. Brett, I'm sure as you know, like the auto industry was kind of for years, you just work somewhere your whole life and that's it. But our generation does things totally different. Like we want change, we want mobility, we want exciting projects to work on. So very much stumbled into entrepreneurship. At the time, a couple friends and I got together. There was a lot happening in downtown Detroit, like a lot of events. Dan Gilbert had just moved his companies down, but there really wasn't like a go-to meeting place or hub. And so we wanted to create a place that was accessible and open for all to come participate in the ecosystem. So when we started, it was 2,000 square feet above a Bales bond and below a music studio. There was no sign. You could not find us. You just kind of had to know. And we had literally the leanest budget. We just did pizza, beer, and had interesting speakers come in. And I think what I realized was I had this innate ability to bring people together and build community, and co-working works as a channel for that. And so since then, that was about 10 years ago, we've just kind of slowly kept evolving our model, as most entrepreneurs do. You know, the pandemic threw a wrench in a lot of plans. survived that and pivoted and changed some more. And now we're really focused on growing Michigan's diverse startup and small business community.
I love that. And you put it so perfectly. I came from the same type of family, raised by teachers, where it was you get a job, you put money in your retirement, and at a certain age you retire, and you kind of go from there. And so it sounds like you and I are very much in alignment with where we came from, and sort of came with some different ideas when it came to entrepreneurship and being ready to build something. Obviously, we're familiar, or our team is, with how Bamboo works, but I'd love to, for our audience, could you just tell us a little bit more about, how Bamboo works? How would you get started with it? What does it come with? How does it look when somebody comes and works at a Bamboo location?
Yeah, absolutely. Co-working is kind of like having a gym membership, actually. You sign up for whatever level of access you want, and then you get to come in and use the space however often you need it. A lot of people use us for virtual offices. So maybe you just need a mailbox. Maybe you just want to start testing out should you open in Detroit or Ann Arbor or Royal Oak, our 3 locations right now. Or maybe you just want to come use the networking. So a lot of people get a virtual membership just to participate in that network of people. Or co-working, or a desk, or an office. Private offices are very popular, actually. As Brett, you had a Detroit presence for a while as you were growing your team here in Detroit. And even now, post-pandemic, they're even more attractive for companies. Often they're downsizing. They don't want to sign a 5-year lease. They don't want to pay for construction. Or if you're a startup or small business, it's kind of risky to do those things. Like, when do you do that?
Right.
And do you need it if people are more hybrid and remote than they were before? So a lot of people will get a small private office. That way they have that balance of privacy, but get to access all these other community amenities like cafes and lounges and phone booths or recording spaces. So yeah, it's a great place to just, very flexibly get some work done, have a third creative space outside of your house, and be a part of a community or a network. And Brett, as you know, if you value community, the more you participate, the more you get from it. So sure, There's some people who just come, they get to work, they don't really go to the events, and that's totally fine. But those who show up, who participate, who give, who make an effort to meet another member and get coffee, they're going to find business relationships from that, or hiring talent from other members, or partnering and going after contracts together. Or often we see people find their first co-founder or investor or big customer. And those are things that jumpstart your business. So
right.
I think it's the value is kind of twofold, affordable real estate, accessible space, and then also that community perk of thriving and collaborating together.
Love that. And yeah, can speak to as a testimonial how valuable that it really is. Let's dig in a bit more to that community aspect, because, that's, I think, one of the more significant aspects to all of this. All of those things are benefits for companies to come in and use Bamboo. But, really, we're here to talk about community. How does community play into the work that you're doing at Bamboo? And I know you started to go into some of those, but I would love to hear more on just, what is it that you're doing and why are you doing it? Why is building communities so important, and how does it look at Bamboo?
Yeah. For me, it's always been my personality. I've always been the person that brought people together, introduced them. We have members who've literally met their lifelong husband, wife, partner through Bamboo. And that's just really fun for me. And I think it's a way to make a positive impact in the world and change culture. So the more inclusive we can be, the more accessible, the more people have opportunities to not just go work in one industry your whole life, but make career changes or try something new or launch a new product. And that's what's really exciting for me, and long-term maybe helps diversify our economy in the state of Michigan, which is still changing. When it comes to building community, I think of community as the words common unity put together. So finding common ground. And so whether you are building a brand that wants to have a community, or you're a company, leaning into that common ground, those values or those common connections are really helpful for building like a sense of community together. A few other things that we think of when we think of community, it's really built on connections. So as much one-on-one connections you can build within a larger community or organization is going to be super impactful. And at Bamboo, we do that through our team at the front desk. They're constantly making intros to people. They're listening all the time. So if Brett was here and came in and said, Amanda, I really need help with X, they know somebody in this 1,000-person community that can do it, or that knows someone that can do that and help you. And as a smaller team or company, like you can't do it alone. Like you were saying, you need access to other support. In a bigger organization, that could look totally different based on your values and your goals. It could be, creating a mentorship program or investing in talent development or creating, if you're virtual or hybrid, more of those one-on-one relationships, which I think are harder to do the more virtual you are or the larger you are, right? And then another thing we really think about is consistency. In order to build community, it has to be consistent. It has to be easy for people to participate. And we like to say we co-create together. So for example, one thing we do in Detroit, which has a heavier like tech community, we do something called Tech Tuesdays. Every Tuesday you can come in and co-work for free. And you can come to an office hours at noon, and you can stay and join a tech meetup, which is really helpful for people working in tech, working on tech startups or products. They get to connect with an angel investor or a product expert. So it tends to be, something easy. You can remember it. You know how to participate. You know where it's at. That could be virtual too for your company, but whatever you do, thinking about how it plays into your values, how it creates one-on-one connections, and how it can be really consistent and easy for others to participate.
I really like that you went into those aspects to community building. First of all, I love how you put it, common unity, because it really is about bringing people together and coming up with this common ground. And the connections that can be made in these situations. I mean, shoot, when I called you, Amanda, to be on this podcast, you had somebody that you were like, hey, I think you should connect with this person. And we were talking about something completely different. And so clearly it's a part of your ethos. It's a part of who you are. And it's such a valuable piece, again, regardless of if you're in kind of the startup ecosystem and you're, looking for an angel investor, or if you're part of an organization. And I love how you put, mentorship programs or fostering one-on-one relationships or, those types of things. Those are ways to kind of build that community even internally. Because there can be external communities, there can be internal communities, but at the end of the day, they're all meant to do the same things. You used a term the other day when you and I were on a call called magic, or you used a term that you said was magic moments. Could you tell me what you mean by magic moments and how they play into what you do?
Yeah. And so I kind of like referenced it a little earlier. It's when you build a relationship that sets the company trajectory in a totally different direction. So at Bamboo, we have founders who have found business partners, or they found that first angel investor to write a check, or they found their first hire that was able to build their product, or we've had teams even like merge together completely. And so those are magic moments. Now you're on a pathway to a totally different company, or you've got that big boost of confidence because you have capital to build your product now, right? And so we love creating those as much as possible. I think those come more from those one-on-one connections. And sometimes it's organic because we're so in person at Bamboo. It can be just being present, coming to events, being present, meeting people. That can happen organically. But it also is intentional. It's having team members or having some sort of structure to make those connections happen for people. So yeah, we call magic moments. We love when those happen. We try to celebrate them. We try to tell their stories. Another example was a really, really awesome woman named Jan came to us in Royal Oak when we opened. Jan was a buyer at a tier 1 supplier, like executive level. She left to do her own consulting. She was literally one of the only women on this executive team and came to Bamboo, got a desk. And about a year or two later, she took her whole team out to lunch to celebrate one of her first massive contracts. And she told me, Amanda, every single person out of these 5 to 6 people, my assistant, my lawyer, my accountant, my photographer, they were all people I met through Bamboo. And so like
Wow.
now as a solo entrepreneur, or someone really stepping out on your own for the first time, you literally could build your whole team if you chose to participate in the community, meet people, build those relationships. Now, that doesn't always happen, but that was like a really special moment to hear, like, you literally found so much support and resources to get your company going. And so those are the things that we try to create through those one-on-one connections. And another way we really think about community is experiences, like shared experiences. So at Bamboo, it's very heavily programmed. We have events almost every week, everything from happy hours to coffee meetings to inspiring speakers. And that's because part of that experience, that shared experience together comes in person. Now, if you're listening and you have a team organization, I think that could look totally different depending on your setup, virtual, hybrid, but there still is usually a need to bring people together and create that shared experience, whether it's an annual offsite. And co-working spaces are great places for all of that too. So it's just a lot of fun. I love doing it.
You're clearly passionate about it, which is why I love talking to you about this, because you've got all these success stories. And I like the shared experiences because, again, no matter where you're at as a company, creating shared experiences for your teams, that brings people together. And that's what this is all about. That's that common unity. I'm going to keep going back to that because I just love that you said that.
Please, you can borrow it anytime you want.
I think that's one I'm going to borrow. But I also think, creating magic moments, it's not just limited to, this startup ecosystem, which you've got these incredible examples of people who have met their entire teams in these magic moments, right? I think about if you're an existing organization, these cross-departmental conversations, intentionally bringing people from different parts of the company together, whether it's just kind of having them go out for coffee one-on-one, or it's a group happy hour, whatever it is, creating those experiential opportunities, those can create magic moments. You might get somebody from accounting and somebody from operations, and they're like, why have we been doing this? Hey, what if we did that? And all of a sudden the company goes in a completely different way.
100%.
So it applies across the board.
The interesting thing about that is it reminds me of a team that was in person all the time pre-COVID. Then they went pretty much 100% virtual, still kept their office, but only came in once or twice a month. And I actually heard their team members say that became harder being 100% virtual, like missing that bumping into each other, that conversation. So the marketing department felt more siloed from product development. And so it was interesting. So I think that, like, depending how people work, we think that flexibility and hybrid work is here to stay. We have people who do come in every day. We have people who come in once a week or less. But it's all of those things need to be thought of even more intentionally if you're not in person. So, but that just reminded me of that example. And I thought, wow, yeah, that is a challenge. So how are you going to facilitate that? So those different departments are talking to each other and are able to like innovate and mentor or, retain talent in different ways, or all these other things that could come from that.
Or even just informing other departments. The virtual environment creates new challenges in that way. And I agree. I think virtual and hybrid, it's here to stay and for the better. But there are those water cooler conversations that can suddenly create I'm just going to keep borrowing your language, create a magic moment that takes a company to a whole different level. So organizations that are hybrid or remote, and that includes ours, we've got an office, but we're very much hybrid/remote. We've got employees in other states who rarely come to the office because that'd be a bit of a commute. But how do we set ourselves up to create those shared experiences and create those water cooler moments in a digital environment? Those are challenges that companies need to kind of think about regardless of their status.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges going forward. And so co-working can sometimes be helpful, right? Because some people will just do team offsites once a year, once a quarter. Sometimes it's a perk, like you can go into a co-working space but still be remote. And sometimes it's a flexible HQ for people instead of building out their HQ. So it is an option that can be helpful depending on the company.
Right. Just one way to get there, 100%. But either way, it needs to get there, because I think one thing you said that really stuck out to me is there's that risk of, especially in a hybrid or virtual world, of becoming too siloed. Marketing team talks to marketing people and, doesn't necessarily interact with operations or finance or whatever it is. That's a risk. And I really like that you brought that up, because I think this is something to just, for our listeners to raise the awareness of, raise the consciousness of.
Yeah.
If we're not intentional about this, we risk getting very siloed, and siloing in a company is, I think we can all agree, is just, that's not a good direction.
It does not lead to innovation. I can tell you that. But then the thing that's also interesting to know is like different ages and stages have different needs. So there's a lot of research out there that says like, yes, younger people want more flexibility, but they're also so hungry for mentorship and development. And it's so much harder for them to get that virtually than building relationships in person. But those kind of more in the middle stages of their career, they're a little more stable. They're pretty in their groove. They have a lot of family commitments. They're happier kind of in those environments sometimes. So, but it all depends on the culture, the individual person. And there's some interesting research coming out now about like the different age groups. And so I wonder sometimes if you're too fully remote, do you see turnover from different age groups faster because they don't get that support? And so all of those things need to be like thought about, and I think will be challenged in the next few years in these new ways.
Right. I think the optimistic outlook from that, from my perspective, is there's options.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is awareness, right? There's options. Use Bamboo for your quarterly. Use, that's your plug, but there's many different. The biggest thing is being aware that this is a risk, I think, for our business leaders and executives that listen to this, is just being aware of that risk. And I love that you're looking at studies. I mean, there is probably data looking at different demographics and age groups of who wants a little more of that connection. Let's call it a connection, because if a company's totally remote, you can still build those connections. We can do mentorship virtually, right? But it's that intentionality behind it, I think, is, if I'm hearing you right, that's the most important part.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, love that. And you spoke to some of this already, but it's worth me kind of revisiting and just asking more explicitly. What are the qualities of a strong community from your perspective?
I actually think it's really, really hard to measure community engagement. But I would say the qualities would be your community's participating. There's always going to be some people who participate a lot more than others. And so at Bamboo, our audience is entrepreneurs, usually. So if you're running a business or startup, you're probably not coming to every monthly event or every weekly event. But if we see you once a year outside of your normal workflow, like that's a success for us, right? So I think it really depends on your audience and on your goals, but you want some sort of engagement from your community. You want them to participate. You want them to feel heard and feel like they're a part of the process. My Royal Oak team does a fantastic job of this. They do like a monthly, they call it Booze and Buntinis. It's like a local cupcake shop that sponsors just a casual open house, and anyone can bring them feedback, and they execute right away on that feedback. They don't even ask me. They just do it. It's usually really small things like, I couldn't find the stapler. Where is it? Can there be more of that? Or can we hear more stories about members? Or sometimes it's educating your customer or community member who doesn't know all of the other perks you might have. Like we have a whole perks program in our app. We have like 20 discounts to local businesses and national resources. And not everyone knows about that. So yeah, for us, success is really co-creating and constantly having that feedback loop. That way we're always helping and serving others. But I think engagement is hard to measure. I think it really depends on the community you're serving and what those goals are, and the outcomes you want to achieve. Right.
Yeah, that's well put. And if you can measure in some way, or at least get your finger on the pulse of, then you can make those adjustments.
Yeah.
And tweak that and move forward with the next.
Yeah. And something else we talk a lot about in our industry is like letting our members lead too. So we have the space, we have all of the operations for you. Can we partner on a special series? Can we promote something for you? Like, how can we make it uplift our people more so they're actually building the community with us? And as a team, I think that that's like super important too. Maybe you have one member who's passionate about something and wants to get the rest of the community on board. And so like looking for those more engaged team members and leaders and then giving them resources and support to help build with you. I think that's really effective too.
I love that because that's empowering. Again, regardless of the size of the organization, that's empowering your people. And then to go back to what's now becoming quickly my favorite phrase is more opportunity for those magic moments. To hear somebody that's really passionate about one area and then create an experience where there becomes this audience for that, whether it's an internal or you're at a Bamboo and you're talking external, right? That is a catalyst for a magic moment. That's a catalyst for something new to kind of come from that effort. I think that's something that regardless of a company's status could really get behind and benefit from.
Yeah, totally. And so like a couple times we have series at Bamboo's, like Tech Tuesdays was brought to us by a member who has a technology platform who wanted to support the tech community. Plain sight. And so we partnered with them to help coordinate and promote a lot of the events. We have Flow Fridays from Flow Video, who, in Detroit is a marketing company that does video work. So they bring together the whole creative and film industry every Friday at the end of the month. We have a member, Brenda Williams, who is fantastic. She's so great. And she supports women leaders, like often running nonprofits or building companies. And she does like a very intimate series for them. And so those are just some of the experiences and partnerships we do with our members that we love doing. And it helps build the community in all these different ways.
Oh, that's excellent. That's excellent. And you know this about myself and about Exploring Potential, that we're huge on company culture. That's so significant to us. What does a sense of community do from your perspective for company culture?
Yeah, for our team.
Yeah, for whatever team, you're a part of, having this sense of community. Let's say we're part of an organization or part of an ecosystem that creates these shared experiences. What does that do for the culture of that organization or groups of organizations in your case, right? How does that sense of community impact the company culture in a positive way?
I think it's like a lot of different things. So we have a member that moved into Royal Oak a few months ago, and his team members are younger, and he felt like he would do better in an environment like Bamboo because we're so social and have so many events and activities. And so it's almost like as a smaller company leaning on us for your outsourced like engagement and community events. It just really depends on the company, but I think it keeps people really excited. It keeps them inspired, engaged. It can help build more collaboration between people. I think that's a harder one for me to answer because it just depends on each individual company's goals. But when he said that, I thought that was super interesting. And he does have a team that's there often. And so the perks of that fun, collaborative environment where there's happy hours and TED Talks on Tuesdays with free popcorn and just fun things that help bring people together was what that company valued and wanted to be a part of.
Right. And I would argue that's something important for each culture, is bringing people together. When we talked about it earlier, but breaking down silos. So bringing different people in different parts of the organization together can help boost that culture by creating those experiences and creating, once again, a common unity amongst those teams.
I'm going to charge you 1 cent every time you say it. No, I'm just kidding.
I do. I probably owe you royalties already.
No. I say it all the time now. And then I guess our team, we are hybrid because we're physical at every location. So we have downtown Detroit, Royal Oak, coming soon our Ann Arbor location. But we're also virtual. And then we really try to be one team no matter where we're at. And so we have some of the challenges we were just talking about are challenges Bamboo faces as a 9-10 person team company.
Sure.
But we really try to inspire collaboration through Slack, do regular team events. So every other month we're doing either something educational or something social. Obviously we're a social environment as I've described to you all, but so I hire people who want events too. They don't want to just socialize in the space. They want to socialize with each other. And so just having that is a big part of our culture too. And we try to stay very flexible, very collaborative, and let each local location lead. So if like a team member has a special area of interest, great. As long as members are interested in that too, go run with it. So we have a team member in Royal Oak, Allie, who's doing anti-seasonal depression programming. She's not telling members it's that, but that's her goal, is to make members feel really cozy and warm and invited when it starts to get gray out in Michigan in November, December, January. So she's doing TED Talk Tuesdays where we have just like popcorn and snacks and like inspiring little talks on for 10, 20 minutes every Tuesday. And people are loving it. And I think that it's those little touches that like go a long way in co-working. I don't know how many people know this, but co-working really is kind of like a hospitality retail business. Even though it falls under real estate, it's so much about that experience when you walk in the door at one of our spaces. So that's like another unique thing to our team. And I hear a lot of feedback that's why they like working at Bamboo, is that we give them that opportunity to lead and like explore their own interests and add their own touches. And in that way too, they're building with us, which is really unique and fun.
Right. And I'm listening to everything you're saying and trying to put it in the lens as well of, again, existing organizations, big or small. Like everything that you've talked about can be implemented in the same way, right? You could take a particular day of the week and have your own TED Talk Tuesdays where different people from different departments share information, right? It's not limited. And maybe you do it in a co-working space, or maybe you do it virtually.
Virtual, yeah, totally. Yeah, or like you're doing with this podcast where you're bringing in clients and community leaders. It just helps keep people really inspired. So yeah, that was just one example. I just love that idea of anti-seasonal depression programming. We all need that in Michigan.
Yeah, maybe send me that schedule. I might have to run down there. No, that's brilliant. I love that. Amanda, you've been doing this for a bit now. I admire your skill set. I admire your drive as an entrepreneur. I mean, you and I have stayed in touch since college. I think we first connected in college at MSU, and I've followed your career and we've stayed in touch. And you're somebody that I certainly look up to as a fellow entrepreneur who is just doing the right things and doing things really well. And so through all of this community building that you've been doing, do you have any practical tips, I'm sure you do, for building a community that our listeners might take away?
Yeah, I think to kind of recap a few things, so it really depends on your goals and where you're at, but consistency, making it really clear and easy for your community to participate, thinking through, is your goals one-on-one connections? Is it shared experiences? So maybe this is like our process at Bamboo is at the end of the year right now, we survey our members heavily in person and through a survey, just to find out like, where are they at? What are their business goals? What do they want to see more of? What do they want to see less of? What experiences are on their minds? It's often like more social than we realize. And maybe that's why we have a lot of those like TEDx Tuesdays and more social events now. Coming out of the pandemic, that was the biggest thing we noticed. People just wanted to reconnect. But we do that. And then every year we sort of set new goals or pillars for our programming that help create those experiences in that community. So if I were just starting out, even if I had no members in my community, who can you talk to that would be an ideal member that can tell you what they want, or who can you partner with to help build that community? And then implementing some of those kind of tactics of consistency, easy ways to participate, letting the community build with you, or sponsoring or partnering with community leaders. Those are all ways that you can build that community.
I love that. Once again, relevant to businesses of all sizes.
And not all co-working spaces are like it. I would say a lot of your indie co-working spaces, independent owned ones, they're going to usually have more of a community vibe. That's like going to your local coffee shop versus your Starbucks. Like you can go to your big brands for things you need. It's going to be the same everywhere you go. You can find those unique third places that are going to be unique to that community. And that's what you're going to experience at a Bamboo, or another independent space than a big box
Right.
one. And that conversation is really going on in my industry right now because we have some like national co-working spaces that have been, in documentaries, and like their models maybe have or have not worked, but it can work. It just works in different ways. And so if one thing came from this podcast, that's besides community building, maybe you now know about co-working, and maybe you now know that there's probably an independent co-working space that's just as great that you can check out. That's not necessarily always going to be that big box brand that you see everywhere or on the news everywhere.
And you've spoken well to the benefits of utilizing that. First of all, I will be the first to say, if you do have the opportunity to be a part of a co-working space, absolutely take it, or look into it for your organization. It helped us tremendously in our growth. And I'm always grateful for that experience. And I love the analogy of local coffee shop versus a big chain, right? There is a little more sense of community, which is what this has all been about. And, there are some common popular names that are in the news, particularly
like
right now.
Week, so I feel like I'm getting tons of questions.
Yes. And, nothing wrong with, scaling a business model. But I think to Amanda's points here, there is something special about independently owned co-working spaces that, can foster additional community than perhaps elsewhere. And again, regardless of if you're a startup or if you're a matured company, you could potentially benefit from this community and shared experiences that come with co-working spaces. But bottom line is creating that sense of community, however that needs to look for your organization. Amanda, this has been so interesting and valuable. Is there anything, I always like to ask, is there anything I didn't give you the chance to speak about that you want to share on this topic?
I think I plugged a couple times. We have our third location opening up. So stay tuned in spring of next year in Ann Arbor. So come check us out there. And anyone listening, you can participate in Bamboo's community if you would like. You can come to our events. Most are free or for the public. They're on our website at bamboodetroit.com/events. And, maybe you're not fully in person, or you travel, or you don't know if you need co-working, but you want to take advantage of being a part of a network. You can be a virtual member. Use us for your mail, your suite address, or just come participate in our virtual community and our in-person community. So I think that's like a really cool hack most people don't know about. Like if you're just starting up, get a virtual office. Then you have an address outside of your house. You have a professional identity, and you have a network you can tap into. And it's usually very, very, very affordable. Ours start at $60 a month. So I think that's like a good life hack for people to know about.
Yeah, I completely agree. Excuse me. In our time there, the investment was minimal compared to the value that we received being a part of that community and being a part of that ecosystem. So yeah, it's a very low risk, high reward type scenario.
Oh, that's awesome to hear. And oftentimes we have members like you who also outgrow us or like move to locations where we're not there or build out their own spaces too. And that's a success. Like you used us as a launching pad for a couple of years, got something from it that you needed and outgrew us. And it's that flexibility that helps people achieve those next milestones. And that's what we love to see.
I think the other thing about that is, I personally still feel connected to the Bamboo community. And it's been a few years, since we've kind of moved out and built our own studio and built our own spaces and grown. But I think that's the other power of community, regardless of where it is or how it looks, is you feel a sense of belonging. And, I still feel that, again, I feel like, we knew each other prior, but at the same time, I felt very comfortable just picking up the phone and calling you right up. And I feel the same way about the connections that I made when I was at Bamboo, even though we're now a few years out.
I love hearing that. That's so fantastic. It's funny. I had a young entrepreneur ask me once who was very interested in community building. Why do this? It sounds like so much work. It sounds like so much, but there is that like loyalty, or like we have people who've been members for years and years and years or outgrow us and still support us in all these different ways. And so there's all these other benefits that you just don't, see on the surface level. So, and it may not be for everyone listening, but if you do it, there are like those long-term benefits. Like you said, you're still connected to our brand. you'll still think of us and we'll still have a relationship because of that community focus.
Exactly. That common unity has brought us together. There's another penny for you. Shoot.
I'll take it.
So, thank you so much, Amanda, for taking the time to speak with me today. It's always a pleasure getting to catch up with you. And this, I think, was such a powerful conversation. I'm going to attempt to kind of recap some of the prime takeaways. If I miss anything big, you make sure to correct me on it. But, when building a community, again, whether you're an existing large enterprise organization or you're just starting out, the important aspects to keep in mind are that consistency, make it easy for people to participate. Think about your goals. So, is it one-on-one connections, or is it these greater shared experiences like happy hours, the TED Talk, Tuesdays, things like that? How might you want to eventize these community efforts? And then something else I heard you say that I think can't be understated is listening to your people, whether it's surveys or whatever it is, but getting that feedback so that you get their buy-in moving forward. So not just getting that feedback, but actually taking it and doing something with it will also help to increase that participation. How was that as a recap, Amanda? Keep me in check on this. What would you add?
Perfect. I don't think I'd add anything. I think that was great.
Well, it came straight from you, so all the credit goes to you. Well, thank you, Amanda, once again for taking the time today. This has been an absolute pleasure. I also want to take a moment to thank our listeners and our viewers for tuning in. Don't forget to please like and subscribe if you're getting value from this content here at the Exploring Potential podcast. You can subscribe on Apple, Spotify, or wherever it is that you get your podcasts. Please give us a rating and a review while you're there. And just a reminder, you can also watch, like, and subscribe on YouTube. So please also visit exploringpotential.com for more information about the work our team does. And thank you all so much. We'll see you on the next episode.